What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. Fire pit time again. In this video, we're going to be talking about capitalism, all right, and the wonderful system that it is. Okay. I thought it was about time to kind of talk about this a little bit. Because I think it was either last week or the week before, we talked about the DSA and how the Republicans and even some of the Democrats, or a large part of Democrats actually, are really very much attacking and pushing back on DSA, Democratic Socialism of America, and trying to sculpt that around, oh my gosh, the communism and socialist scare. So we're going to talk about capitalism today. All right. So, thank you very much for joining me. If you are new to the channel, welcome. If you'd like to check out more, there are links down below to this channel and all my other channels as well. If you would like to, check all more videos out, consider subscribing, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. All of that's free for you and helps out tremendously. If you would like to go further, there's Patreon link there, $2 a month. Support any of the channels that you would like to help grow those channels, help grow Patreon, and become a part of the JMD Nation, and contribute to that how you would like to. That would be amazing. There's also a merch link there. Have merch for every single channel. So check that out. If you like it, get it. That would be amazing. And if you're a Patreon member, you get a discount on the merch. So even more reason to be a Patreon member. But either way, any support you give is very much appreciated, and I thank you very much. And if you're returning, you're freaking amazing. Welcome back and keep coming back. Today, we actually are kind of quiet. The guys over at the water that are been drilling the well and stuff for the past two and a half months. Whatever they're doing today is kind of quiet. So that's good, because I know the sound in the background and stuff has been probably a little bit of a pain probably. And I will be shifting probably by next week more into the studio. We are getting kids back to school, so it's a little less awkward, or for me to do stuff in the studio versus out here or whatever. We got one more kid that will go back into school next week, so that would be great. So anyways, capitalism. So we have, as we know, our system is a capitalist system. This has been promoted and pushed and has been the core of our system for a while, from the beginning, quite frankly. If you and what is capitalism? Basically at its core, capitalism is about enriching yourself. That's the core idea, all right? And the ability to enrich yourself, enrich oneself, is through profiteering, through privatization, all right? Free market system, things like this. So this is what has been promoted. This is what has been driven in our society, again, since the beginning of it. All right, and in many societies, okay, it is an economical system. All right, just like communism and socialism. But again, the core difference is the profiteering and privatization, where socialism and communism more sits in the more public sphere, all right? More public ownership, more public sustainability, all right? In capitalism, because it being a more profit-driven, a more private, okay, it is about enriching or providing for one's self, okay, an individual's self. That's the core value of it. There's the major difference there. Providing comes sort of secondhand. All right, it's not the core. It's not the main objective. Capitalism is more about providing for oneself. Simple. It's not. It's not. And when taken, and again, not necessarily is it inherently bad, but also not inherently good. Just like communism or socialism, neither one are inherently good or bad. All right, and it depends upon how it's implemented. It depends upon who is in control and how it is being uh, how it is being led, how it's been constructed, how it's carrying out by those that are in the positions to influence it, um, in the way of who it's benefiting, right? That's what we talk about here, or what we're trying to give nuance when it comes to any of these systems. Okay, um, so but again, the core difference between capitalism and socialism and communism is the privatization versus public. All right, keep that in mind. Now, again, communism and socialism are also not the same. All right, there are core differences between them, but they at the core are very different from capitalism. Okay, uh, capitalism, with the privatization, with the um, profit motive here, when you take capitalism to its ultimate ending, if you allow it to go without restrictions, without regulations, without any kind of backstops or any kind of rules, okay, and you let it go completely unfettered, then it's going to its full extreme of privatization and of profiteering, okay? And you wind up, especially when you don't have any core for a base for the public itself, then you wind up with profits being taken over people. A full stop all the time. The concern for the public, the concern for the greater community is not at the forefront. It's at the the only thing that's at the forefront is profiteering for oneself. Privatization, individuality, um, selfishness, basically. Okay. The idea of providing for the public is a second-hand thing. There's the consumer drive, but that's only the providing of any kind of services for the public is only in the way of benefiting the one who has the private ownership. All right. Ultimately, all of the main benefits go to that. That's capitalism. And the reason why that is promoted is for people to enrich themselves. Okay, but it's an enrichment of individuality, it's enrichment of specific people. All right, those who are willing to forego the concerns of any public matters and are selfish and greedy. Okay, that's capitalism inherently does promote greed, hoarding, um, again, enrichment of oneself without the concerns of everybody else, without the concerns of the community at large. All right, the community at large, the idea there is that it will just go and things will just happen. You know, they still have access. Still have, you know, but ultimately the community at large is at the service of those that are enriching themselves. Okay, that are greedy. That is truly what capitalism is. And when you allow it to go completely unfettered and unregulated, without any kind of limitations, then the ultimate ends of it is to the complete extreme and benefit of those willing to take advantage of it. Those that are selfish and greedy and want to just inflate themselves, basically. The indulgence of money and enrichment, um, the gluttonous nature of somebody, all right, when it comes to money and power and control. That's capitalism. Now, why is it oftentimes promoted? All right. And who is promoting it? Clearly, the ones who want it the most and the ones who want to make sure that it stays in control or stays as the primary system is the rich, the wealthy, the elites. Simple. Why? Because it completely gains to them. They get all the enrichment of it. And again, they have the masses at their realm to help enrich them. The masses are just a number. Doesn't matter. They're not in the service of actually providing sustainability for the public at large. All right, capitalism, again, it's a private profit system. In order for something like capitalism to actually provide for the community at large, it must be regulated. It must be forced. The rich and elites and powerful, the ones that are taking advantage, the ones that are enriching themselves off of the capitalist system, must be they must voluntarily give back to the community, to the public service in a grand nature, or they must be forced to do so by limitations, regulations, and everything else. Again, capitalist system allowed to go unchecked will reach the inevitability of more enrichment for the rich, and the poor will get poorer. Okay, there will be a larger gap continuation till the inevitable means of complete split. Everybody, only a few have everything, and everybody else has nothing. That's capitalism. There has to be checks and balances. And at the core of history, when it comes to the United States, when capitalism was working, okay, when capitalism was working for everybody than just the rich, was when we had the most regulations and the most laws and rules and limitations on the rich. Okay, when we had extremely high tax on the rich, which would force that money back down to the bottom. That is the way you regulate capitalism. That is the way you have to. That capitalism ultimately does wind up working for everybody and benefiting everybody. Is when you either, again, force the rich, force those taking advantage of it, force those that have the innate nature to enrich themselves and greed and everything else. They must be forced to give back if they don't do voluntarily. That's the only way it works. And as long as you have a government or you have things in place that force that, then it works. But what has happened since Reaganomics came into play, that's the reason why throughout the early 20th century, the end of the 19th century, capitalism had been allowed to go, as far at that point to its inevitable end that it could reach. And we had the previous Gilded Age, where the rich was so rich, all the money was so controlled by just a few, and all the people on the bottom were getting nothing. That you had that backlash, you had that shift and change of progressive politicians and progressive movement within Washington throughout the early 1900s that ultimately led to FDR and the New Deal, and actually, changing that, putting all the tax burden on the rich, pushing that money back to the government, back into programs and infrastructure and things that would benefit and help provide jobs or whatever for those that were not willing to, for the masses. But the rich, they ultimately didn't like that. And they were able to, once we got to Reagan, they were able to promote and influence Reagan to change that, to drop all the taxes, flipped it on its the coin on its head, basically. And ever since then, you've had a continuous deregulation, unbinding of the rich and elite, to the point that we have now reached once again a point that mimics, and in some cases is gotten even worse than the previous Gilded Age, where a handful of people have all the wealth and the bottom has nothing. Again, when you allow capitalism to go completely unfettered, when you allow it to go unregulated, which the rich and elite will always try to push for, they will always try to push and for that enrichment. All right, that's what has happened. What I find right now very interesting about this age is that I've seen, and maybe it has been done like this before, and I just don't necessarily know, but what I have seen here of late is the idea of branching and connecting capitalism directly to democracy. Okay, which I guess one could argue that it always has been like loosely connected to it, but now it's being connected in a way as if the only way to have democracy is to have capitalism. And if you do not have capitalism, if there, and not even like it, not even to the degree of like the complete lack thereof, like nothing, like if you are full on social or full on capitalism, then you have no democracy. It's like even just the slightest sliver of socialism being like used to create a regulatory state on capitalism, just the slightest bit, is an erosion of democracy. That's the way it's being pushed right now. That you cannot have, you have to remove all of these socialist quote unquote programs, the programs that are actually like trying to help mitigate the severities of capitalism. The state, this late postmodern state of capitalism, this late stage capitalism that we are currently once again going through. It's being promoted like directly to democracy, which I find very concerning. For starters, democracy is not an economic system. Democracy is the idea of everybody getting a say, okay? Everybody getting some sort of input, everybody getting some sort of influence on decision making, the community-like thing. That's what democracy is, an equality of everybody getting a say on how shit runs. Capitalism directly negates that. It directly flips democracy on its head at its core. Because again, capitalism is about privatization, not about the public good. So those that are trying to describe as democracy can only flow through capitalism are being absolutely blatantly disingenuous with you. I mean, look at any business structure, okay? Any business structure in capitalism. Look at your job. Is it democratic? Think about it for a second. Is it democratic? Does everybody get a say in the conditions, pay, benefits? I mean, does everybody get a say in it? Does everybody get equal input? Or do you have one guy at the top making all the decisions and it flows down the tree? And you and those below just have to accept it. Business structure is not democracy. It's not created democratically. It's a monarchy. That's what capitalism promotes, is a monarchy. All the wealth, the privatization, the individuality, that's what capitalism promotes. It is completely, inherently opposite of democracy. Socialism and communism are actually closer to democracy and actually inherently promote more democratic means and results in an economical system than capitalism ever will. But why do they want to connect it to democracy? Because they, at the core of the United States specifically, is the idea of democracy. Is the idea of everybody getting a fair share. The idea of everybody being treated fairly. And they want you to think that that's what capitalism does. It creates fairness. It allows the rich to be rich, and then they will filter that down to you to make everything fair. But like we've talked about, that's not what capitalism does. Especially when it completely goes unregulated and when it goes unbound, when there are no restrictions and limitations. Like right now, us having the very first trillionaire. Again, no limitations. I used to talk on here all the time about forget trillionaire. There should be no billionaires. That's what I mean. Limitations. Putting a cap on what somebody can, how much somebody can enrich themselves. Because if you, again, allow that to go completely unrestricted, unregulated, unlimited, then the innate nature of greed and selfishness that one has to have to reach that level, selling your soul, fuck the better good of everybody else. That's what happens. All the money, all the profits, all of the concentration goes to those few. And everybody else gets nothing. We get the crumbs that either they decisively give us or happens to fall without them even knowing. Okay, you know how you sometimes accidentally knock crumbs off on the floor and you don't even realize it? Sometimes you're eating and you see the crumb fall and you know it's there and you just let it be there. There's the difference. Sometimes crumbs fall and you don't even know it. But that's all we get. Now, while there is no actual separation here when we're talking about politicians, when it comes to capitalism and the support thereof and the support of privatization and profiteering, Republican or Democratic alike, they both promote it, no doubt, and they both parties take complete advantage of it. They're completely corrupted in it. I have an ant on me. Hold on. But there is a party that wholeheartedly promotes, and not only promotes capitalism, but promotes the most far right, unfettered, unbound, unrestricted, unregulated. They're constantly pushing for less regulations, less regulations, less regulations, and for removing taxes, removing taxes, removing taxes. And that's the Republican Party. Why? Because at the core of the Republican Party has been bought, has been controlled by the elite, at least since Reagan. Because Reagan himself was an elite. You know, when they talk, and the funny thing is the right oftentimes tries to play, even in today's modern, like Hollywood, that the Hollywood is the elite. They're the corrupted. They're the destructful. They are, and while, yes, I would agree that Hollywood, the old age Hollywood, the old Hollywood, the Hollywood that Reagan came from, was an elitist, like, playground. No doubt. And anybody that was connected to, like, enrichment and everything was in Hollywood. Your Hollywood execs, that's the prime age where Hollywood was getting all the money, because all the entertainment was placed there. And while there's an argument that actors and stuff may not have really been getting all of that. It was all the execs, it was all the uppers, the biggers, the elites of there. Hollywood was the elite status. It's the status where Reagan come from. But today's Hollywood is a little different. Today's Hollywood, there's a new age Hollywood now, where you've had a lot of the execs and everything and the corruption be released, and they're not really that is hard driven and connected to elitism as it once was, because now all the money, now all the concentration of wealth, which would previously was in Hollywood, was in real estate, like where Trump comes from. Okay, now the concentration of it is in technology. So real estate, Hollywood, they're kind of the old school. All right, that's what's created this new school Hollywood now, of where you see in so many actors and stuff actually come out against elitism, because the actors and stuff actually have more push and more pull and more influence now than they did back then. And you've had this pushback by actors and actresses on the Hollywood execs, giving them more influence and more legitimacy, let's say. And these are actually, at the core, they're just regular everyday people. A lot of them are. Now, yes, you do have your degree of nepotism when it comes to Hollywood. Those that, become actors and actresses famous because they, are the child of a previously famous one. Whatever, fine. That's that in itself is a different thing. But there's still an influence and a growing shift in Hollywood against elitism. That's the reason why there's so much attack now on Hollywood from the far right, because the far right has engulfed itself in the technocratic status of elitism that we currently live in today. It's the reason why the Republican Party pushes for all the AI stuff. They are pushing the likes of Elon Musk and becoming a trillionaire, because they are solely, wholeheartedly bought and sold by the elites, by the rich. It's the reason why they promote less taxation on corporations and on wealthy. It's the reason why they promote, and at the same time, they want to dismantle all the social safety nets. What few social safety nets have been placed in our capitalist system to try to make sure that there is somewhat of a balance. Again, when you don't allow balance, when you don't force balance, they want to wholeheartedly do that. And why? Again, because the elites are in full control of the Republican Party. They are bought and sold by the elites. And in order to maintain their control, the elites have to promote the most stringent version of capitalism, the late stage capitalism, which gives them the most control, the most power. And what these new aged rich elites haven't quite figured out yet, that ultimately those before did figure out, was that if you do not give the masses something, if you do not actually try to balance stuff, then there will come a reckoning. There will be a point where a line is crossed, and there will be a huge backlash by the larger massive community that will ultimately hurt the wealthy and rich, whether they like it or not. And it will upend capitalism. That's something that they haven't quite understood. Again, just like the masses haven't learned from history, apparently the new modern rich wealthy have not learned from history. But if we look, we can see this is inevitable. And we're seeing that happen right now with the development of DSA, and with DSA candidates winning like crazy in landslides, because the core of the masses have realized and have seen and have identified that our problem is not each other, it's the elites and powerful. It's this late stage capitalism. The fact that, again, capitalism going unfettered, unregulated, uncontrolled, does not benefit anybody but those that privately own it, that are profiteering. Profits over people. That is capitalism. So the idea of DSA is to, what we talked about before, marrying, okay, the goods of capitalism with the goods of socialism and socialist programs, trying to hold the base, trying to hold the rest of society and give them the opportunity to actually live comfortably, or live, above the poverty line at the very least, to have and to be able to provide for themselves without exertion of overwork and exertion of poverty line status, of poor status, which does promote all the problems of society, promotes the higher drug use, promotes the bigger mental health issues, stress, anxiety, depression, anger, frustration, which then lashes out to violence, lashes out to criminal activity. Okay, when people are desperate, that's the idea. And capitalism does not provide it on its own. It has to be forced to. That's the reason why the elites, the Donald Trumps, this administration, the far right, they don't want socialism, because socialism does not inherently promote enrichment. Socialism is about a balance. It's about making sure that everybody's taken care of and actually forcing that, not the other way around. Any system can look bad and be done bad how it's implemented and who is implementing it. All of these communist and socialist historical states and situations that is oftentimes pointed to, those systems were not put in place by the base. They were not put in place inherently from the public. It didn't come up from grassroots. It was put in place by those that were in leadership, those that were in control, which were more authoritarian dictator leadership. And that's the reason why they put it in, and they put it in place to enrich and benefit themselves, not the public. So it was a corrupted, disingenuous version of communism and socialism. Again, communism and socialism is inherently bad. Just like capitalism isn't necessarily inherently bad. But it's how it's ran, and how it's regulated, and how it's policied, right? How the rules are, and who put the rules in, and whether they are actually being used to benefit or being forced to benefit the society at large, as well as give those who want to enrich themselves above their means the ability to do so. And every system can do that. Some systems promote it more than others. Like we've talked about, capitalism promotes the enrichment over the public good, where the other two promote the public good over enrichment. Now, I know I've punched at Republicans a lot, but Democrats are also a part of this problem. And while there is a sentiment in the Democratic Party to at least try to do a little bit of balance, they try to appear like they're giving way more balance than they actually are. But that's the reason why DSA also threatens the Democratic Party, because a lot of the Democratic Party, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, just like the Republican Party, is bought by the rich and wealthy. They have every means to make sure that this capitalism system and its unfetteredness, its unregulated nature that it has gotten to still kind of maintain in that, because it's benefiting them, and they don't want to see, they want to promote little regulatory things here and there, but ultimately they want to and actually script that as the connection to democracy. That's what makes it capitalism democratic, is that we are going to try our best to give the minimal that we possibly can in trying to control and regulate capitalism, but not really to the degree that it needs to be, because then that would start to actually hurt us. That would, and I mean us by them, those elite Democrats. So it's a problem, no matter where, in either party. But again, the party that promotes the complete, unbound, no holds bar, inevitable means of capitalism is the Republican Party. And what we are seeing in this administration is the far right of the Republican Party, the most extreme of the Republican Party, the most elitist of the Republican Party, allowing for the complete unbound nature of capitalism and what that brings about. They are letting us see it. Full stop. I mean, blatant, open, in your face corruption, enrichment, destruction of any type of base for the public betterment. Nothing. Complete privatization, profiteering, corruption, taking advantage of the system type of administration. That's what we're seeing right now. And we're getting to see how destructive that is for the greater public. It's fine for those that want to only enrich themselves and only concern themselves and are selfish and don't care about the greater public. But that's not the greater public. It's just not. Is it more than I would like to see? Yeah. I mean, I would hope that there would be a like all of the greater public, without the selfish intent, tendencies. But unfortunately, there's at least 30% roughly the support that Trump remains to be able to hold on to. But this is what late stage capitalism. This is what capitalism looks like when you completely let it go unregulated. And those in power right now, allowing it to go that way, they're doing it so that they can gain and get as much as they possibly can, because they've got to know that there is a line that at some point is going to get so far that the ultimate backlash is going to happen. Again, I think we're already seeing the beginnings of it, where ultimately the people are going to rise up and demand that the system flip it on itself. And they want to try to get everything they possibly can right now, because their power will dwindle after that. You don't have, nobody has validity, right, without support. That's what makes anything valid. And unfortunately, that's the only thing that makes anything valid in life, is support for it. The greater support for any one thing gives it more validity than others. And the support for the rich and wealthy, the support for this unfettered capitalist nature system, is becoming so distasteful to the mass of society, is becoming so unsupported that its validity is finding is diminishing. So they're trying to grab everything they can. Again, I'm not here to try to break the capitalist society that we live in. I'm not here to dismantle it. And DSA is not here to do that either. Now, yes, there are some in the far reaches of DSA that might have said some rhetoric about, dismantling capitalism to some degree, but DSA, the idea of democratic socialism, is not to dismantle capitalism. It actually has to work within capitalism. That's the way it's structured. That's the way it's meant to do. All right. If it was mean to break capitalism, then it would no longer exist. Okay. It can only exist within a capitalist system, but it marriages again the best parts of socialism, holding the social platform, making sure people are taken care of, and marrying it with the best of capitalism, so that we can actually have a regulated, and structured capitalist system that is forced to actually provide for everybody, and not just the profits and profiteers of the private sector. Okay, that's all it's trying to do, which you must do, which we have discussed. And that's very important when we're talking about this new AI movement that is happening, this new AI age that is happening. Because right now, the Republicans in this administration are allowing the AI to go completely bonkers, off the wall, with absolute no regulation or conversation around what that is ultimately going to cause and create for the greater public, when we're talking about employment and how people are going to live, the change that that system is going to bring, where only two things could possibly happen: that either you completely bomb all the profiteering, bomb all the pricing, bomb all the inflation that we have had, and drop prices of all goods to bare minimal, because people are not going to, have as many jobs. They're not going to be making as much money because AI is going to be running everything. Or you have to supplement the public for your AI system, meaning things like universal basic incomes and things like that, where people are actually provided, which means you have to force the elites running those AI systems and AI companies to actually give back to the government, therefore to provide for the people. That's the only things that can possibly happen, unless you want a complete just breaking and poverty level out the wazoo of the public, and the absolute worst outcomes that will bring about, which will very much go against, again, that would be the complete unbound, unregulated means of capitalism through AI. You have to have it regulated. And right, this administration is not, the Republicans are not of the mind to actually guide and protect us into that type of system. You have to understand this. To understand the basics of how a capitalist system has to work, just with what we've been trying to do over the past century, you must see that that same type of situation and condition must be also implemented in this new AI age that we are looking at, and unfortunately looking at very soon. So thank you very much for joining me. Let me know what you think. And until next time, peace, clear talk. I'm out.